Thank you, Toyin, and congratulations to Toyin and Nazaru for putting on such an outstanding summit. Yesterday was, wow, great speakers, great information, and the group who put this all together are definitely to be commended. It is great to be back in Chicago and the state of Illinois. I live in Michigan now, but I'm originally from Chicago. Born on the South Side, grew up in Chatham, went to high school, product of Chicago Public Schools, went to high school at Lindblom Technical High School in West Englewood, attended undergrad at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, went to graduate school at University of Michigan, Ross School of Business. What I'm going to talk to you about today, we've heard a lot about the market opportunity. What I'm going to talk about is the power of combining the market opportunity that is the African continent with local manufacturing and production. Local manufacturing and production will only accelerate that opportunity that we've heard about yesterday. I'm going to use a lot of the slides and data from my book, Motoring Africa, Sustainable Automotive Industrialization. So let's get right to it. A little bit about me. I'm from the auto industry. I've been blessed to have a career aligned with where I'm really passionate. I led the creation of these vehicles listed on this page during my 25 years between Ford, BMW, and GM. I also consulted with the automakers listed on the bottom of this page and have had the privilege to work in China, India, South Korea, Mexico, and Brazil, and contribute to each of these companies succeeding in the auto manufacturing sector in those countries. I currently lead a firm called Motoring Ventures based in Metro Detroit. We're an investment and advisory firm that makes investments and helps build manufacturing business in the automotive and manufacturing sector. Many of our clients are private equity firms that are making investments in the automotive and manufacturing sector. We help those businesses reach their full potential through our work on improving operations, cost structure, addressing engineering issues, implementing growth strategies. So that's what we do. And while a lot of what I talk about today, to a large extent, is focused on the automotive industry, it is definitely applicable to many other industries. The automobile is the most complex consumer product that you will buy. Okay? It has to perform in a number of different conditions. It has to meet a number of regulatory requirements. It requires a significant amount of capital to design and engineer and to manufacture. And it is a hyper-competitive and global industry. When you look at any other industry out there, whether it be consumer electronics, medical devices, other industrials, alternative energy systems, many of those industries face those same conditions, that is automotive. So please, really, anything I talk about is applicable to other industries as well. So in the next 15 minutes or so, what I'm going to talk about are four things. First, what the opportunity for Africa is, which was covered very, very well by our speakers yesterday, so I'm just going to touch on that. Why manufacturing and automotive is important, why it matters at all. Manufacturing, industrialization, and sustainable industrialization defined. What is this thing called industrialization? We heard Kanayo mention it yesterday. We heard the ambassador mention industrialization, its priorities. You hear many the leaders of many African nations mentioning industrialization. So I'm going to talk about what that really means. And then, as my book is very forward-looking and action-oriented, I'm going to get into how you do it. So, we heard yesterday a lot about the market opportunity due to population growth, the demographic dividend, and the young workforce. One other point is that if we continue on the current trend, manufacturing is scheduled to double. Output for manufacturing is scheduled to double on the continent from $500 billion to $930 billion. Output in GDP only for manufacturing. Now that's nice. However, that is still only less than a third of the manufacturing in the United States, with only a third of the people, and is 1/5 of China. with a similar population between the country of China and the continent of Africa. So I see that as an opportunity. I think it's good that it's growing, but I think this is an opportunity to accelerate that and create more value. Growing economies, growing middle class, people want what? More things, okay? So this is another opportunity for manufacturing. If you look at the global automobile industry, automobiles on a global basis, there are about 180 vehicles per 1,000 people in the world on average. When you look at the United States, very developed automotive market, very developed economy, we're at about 800 vehicles per 1,000 people. Because many people have 2 and 3 vehicles in their household and in their garage. But if you look at the African continent, that number is only 44. 44 vehicles per 1,000 people. So if the African continent were to just quadruple the number of vehicles, you could quadruple and only be at the global average. Tremendous opportunity, tremendous market opportunity that can be even strengthened through local manufacturing. So why manufacturing and why automotive? Let me show you this chart here. Globally, just under 100 million vehicles, cars and trucks, are produced every year. 100 million. That's all markets all around the world. This is the interactive portion of my presentation. Who wants to guess how many are produced on the African continent? I know we're not supposed to take questions, but I'll take answers are okay. So, who wants to answer that question? Venture a guess. Yes, sir. 5 million? Okay, I hear 5 million. Do I hear 6? 6 million sold. Okay, sir.
Probably 3 million.
3 million? Okay, 5 million, 6 million, 3 million. I'll cut to the chase. The answer is about 1 million. 17.5% of the world's population produces 1% of the world's vehicles. So you look at China, population similar to the African continent, country of China, similar to the African continent, produces just under 30 million vehicles per year. Okay? That is an opportunity. The difference between 1 and 30 is about 29 million. You look at the largest auto company in the world, Volkswagen, largest auto manufacturer. Volkswagen, about a $280 billion company, produces about 10, 11 million vehicles per year, okay? And employs about 300,000 people. So automotive production is a mega producer of opportunities and jobs, okay? We get into that a little deeper in terms of the whys behind that. So think about it, the difference between 1 million and 30 million is 3 Volkswagens. Not 3 Volkswagens, 3 Volkswagens, the companies. Tremendous opportunity. So again, why does this matter? Automotive is it's a large business. Okay, as I mentioned, Volkswagen, about $280 billion in sales. Toyota, about 270 million. Daimler, just under 198 billion. These are all big numbers, right? In my view, the African continent should be participating at more than just 1% of this, especially if the market has the potential to grow much larger than it is today. Let's compare automotive to the tech industry, because on the African continent, there are many countries and regions and cities where the technology sector is actually underway quite well. Okay, but if you look at the top 3 automakers in the world, and these are based on 2016 annual reports, so the numbers change over time. If you look at Toyota, Volkswagen, GM, and Hyundai, combined market capitalization of those top 4 companies is $300 billion in market capitalization. You look at the top 4 tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Google, and Microsoft, that's $2.4 trillion. So from a value creation standpoint, yes, obviously you need to be in the technology sector. But if you look at the job from a job creation standpoint, the tech companies produce about 650,000 employees, employ about 650,000 employees. But the automotive sector, 1.3 million, twice as many. So this is the case that says we can't do it all with only technology. We should look at the manufacturing sector as well. And this is just the auto companies. What I'm going to talk to you about later is there's a multiplier effect when you look at the supply chain. Okay? So why is the auto industry so complex? Why does it create so many jobs? Every vehicle, and everyone here probably came here in a vehicle unless you stayed in the hotel next door, there are 30,000 parts in every car. 30,000 parts in every vehicle. Now, as a chief engineer and executive chief engineer on the vehicles programs that I led, I can tell you with certainty that about 70% of those parts are not made by Toyota or Volkswagen or Ford. They are made by outside suppliers. They are the supply chain. So the major drivers or the major value add that the automakers are to these days are obviously the brands, but also design, systems integration, and really putting the systems together to make it into a vehicle. But there's tremendous opportunity for entrepreneurs and job seekers in regions and nations where there's an auto sector. And every one of those vehicle programs, there are about 300 suppliers, 300 separate companies that build those parts. So, and on top of that, the auto assembly creates one set of employees, but when you look at that supply chain, they create 4 to 5 times more than the vehicle manufacturers themselves. So China, their automakers employ about 1.6 million people. If you look at this entire supply chain, that number gets closer to 8 million. United States, automakers, about 900,000 people, about 4.5 million when you look at this, all the suppliers in the supply chain. Tremendous opportunity for creating jobs. So each of those 30,000 parts fall within 7 major vehicle subsystems. So I won't get too technical. Unless you're an automotive guy, we could go all day because I love talking about this stuff. But I remember Kanayo mentioning yesterday the Afrexim Bank's interest in investing in production and processing capabilities. Well, to make each of those 30,000 parts in those 7 major subsystems, all those parts have to be casted, stamped, plastic injection molded, okay, painted, coated, assembled. All of those different processes are used not only to make those 30,000 parts in those 7 major vehicle subsystems, but it is applicable to other industries as well. You can think of many other products, industrial and consumer, that need to use those same processes. So when a region or market has those capabilities to cast, machine, stamp, injection mold, and assemble, that can be applied to other industries as well, which results in more growth, more jobs. So what is this thing called industrialization? What's the difference between manufacturing, industrialization, and sustainable industrialization, which forms part of the title of my book? Just a quick chart to try to illustrate that to you. A manufacturing company or manufacturing business repeatedly produces a given product, right? One company producing a product. When you have more than one of those companies producing a product in a given sector, that's when you get an industry. You know, there's some competition, you get an industry. When a region starts to put together the policy, the supply chain, the education, the infrastructure, and other factors in place to help those businesses succeed, that's when you start to get industrialization. So you work together between the businesses and the government to get to the industrialization. And you get to sustainable industrialization when you have all those resources aligned and grow them to scale such that you eliminate waste, you drive efficiencies, and the business is sustainably profitable, so it succeeds over time. and has the right relationship with the community and the right relationship with the environment, so it succeeds over time. So businesses that focus on and can, at scale, serve large markets and do so in a way that's friendly with the communities and the environments, those are sustainable industrialized companies and regions, and those are the ones that are successful over time. Let me give you an example. So a big part of sustainable industrialization is eliminating waste. Now, yesterday, Colonel Wyatt, Andrew, where's Andrew? Okay, call him out, he's not here. And Shakira each mentioned Ford increase in the production of the Ranger in the Silverton plant near Pretoria in South Africa. Now, they're doing it in a pretty efficient way. They're adding a third shift. So 1,200 new employees with little CapEx, little capital expenditure there. So it's actually a pretty efficient way. However, most of those parts for those Rangers actually come from Thailand. So 50 to 60% of those parts come from Thailand. So you're looking at 15,000 to 20,000 of those 30,000 parts have to get on a boat in Thailand, sail on the ocean for 29 days to get to Port Elizabeth or Durban in order to get on a truck and then go to Silverton. So imagine the added cost of that transportation. Imagine the added logistics expense, the warehousing expense, the quality potential impact, because most automotive manufacturing now is just-in-time production, not just in a month production. So that example can be shown in other places. When you look at Volkswagen parts, significant portion coming from Hamburg, Germany, 31 days on the water. Any components coming from China to South Africa, 38 days on the water. And in the case of BMW in Roslyn near Pretoria, who just switched over from building the 3 Series, most of which the 3 Series sedans were exported to the United States, they changed over to the X3 sport activity vehicle. If any of that supply chain is coming from Charleston, Port Charleston in South Carolina, to South Africa, that's 37 days on the water. So local production reduces the number of parts that need to be shipped, reduces that time, improves quality, and obviously at the same time creates jobs. The other benefit of local production is foreign exchange. The chart on the right shows between 2012 and 2017 how the South African dollar weakened. The South African rand weakened versus the US dollar. Every time that line moved up, imported parts became more expensive. So if you're producing in the same currency as the market where you're selling, you're reducing that risk tremendously. So as South Africa can go from about 40% localization of the supply chain to about 60%, which is where the government wants them to get to, they improve their exposure to foreign currency fluctuations. So how do you do it? In my book, In Motoring Africa, we get into, we propose that automotive industrialization should be focused on six of the 55. I was listening to VON last night. 6 of the 55 African countries: South Africa, Morocco, Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. And I won't go into all the rationale, that's all in the book, but there's 9 rationale for those locations. Part of it is access to large markets from a market access standpoint. Another one is their location and proximity to seaports, because from a cost standpoint, shipping over water is less expensive than shipping over land. That's a logistics savings. There are other rationale that is shared in detail in the book. Trade agreements, industrialization as a priority, how the country ranks on the World Bank doing business interests, and others. The book, we also get into the 10 steps needed to execute sustainable industrialization. So in addition to the country selection, which the 9 criteria cover, we also cover elements elements such as product selection, product portfolio strategy. It's very important what you build, not just that you're building. It's hard to build scale with a product that the market doesn't want or that there's no demand for. So product portfolio selection is an important thing. Okay. How you implement circular economy strategies to help drive sustainability. That's another one of the steps that I outline in the book. How you produce with renewables, and how you implement the proper balance between local labor and Industry 4.0 tools. Talk about all of those things as well. So who's done it recently? This chart here shows 4 different nations that went about on a path of automotive industrialization. Each one has different time frames because each one did it at a different timetable. But if we just look at China as an example, back in 1990, it actually started in the 80s, but just looking at the years from 1990 to 2015, China went from building 500,000 vehicles per year to 24 million. 500,000 to 24 million, a 50-fold increase. And their GDP during that same time went from 360 billion to 10 trillion. So, yeah, absolutely, SMEs drive growth, absolutely. But when you look at large, complex manufacturing, that transforms communities and transforms economies. That's why manufacturing is important as well. So if you look at those numbers today, China's GDP is closer to 14 trillion now at the end of 2018, and they produce just under 30 million vehicles per year in 2018. India, similar story, 114,000 vehicles in 1980 to 4.1 million in 2015. They're about 5 million now, with an 11-fold increase in GDP. So that's the example. One of my favorite commercials were the ones that said, "But wait, there's more." But wait, there's more. Actually, manufacturing is just the starting point, okay? Once a nation or a region is involved in automotive manufacturing and the ingenuity of the local market gets into vehicle production and the supply chain production, that can also, over time, get into the other elements of the industry, such as developing the vehicle, which involves strategy, design, product and process engineering, testing. I just recently saw that anyone like Land Rovers, Range Rovers? So there's a new Land Rover Defender that's coming out, and they're doing, part of their testing procedure is actually happening in Kenya. Product and process engineering, new business models, such as electrification and autonomous vehicles. If the continent is involved in this sector, it can eventually get into the different elements of developing the vehicle, making the vehicle, sourcing, manufacturing, engineering, scale production, and also many of the new business models involved in selling the vehicle, which include not just only electrification and autonomous, but vehicle sharing and ride sharing. So just to conclude, next growth markets can be found in Africa. I think we're all convinced of that. Growing markets mean demand for more goods and services. Local manufacturing can create more local jobs and more local consumers and create that virtuous cycle. Local manufacturing is also good for the businesses as well because it reduces variable costs and improves margins. And that's what all businesses want to do. So finally, companies selling in Africa, and we've talked a lot about trade with Africa and selling with Africa, should consider manufacturing in Africa. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I share a lot of articles and write a lot about what's happening in the auto sector, not only in Africa, but in other emerging markets. And I share a lot of that on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle. I'll be around if anyone has any questions afterwards or is interested in a copy of the book. So thank you for your attention.